Chiro here from Games with a review of Godfall, available at launch time of PlayStation 5 and also available on Windows in November of 2020, and released later on PlayStation 4 August 10th, 2021. There's a Challenger Edition which was available as a free monthly PlayStation Plus game, but I believe it starts you at max level and lets you play in-game only, not the full campaign. The game originally released to middling reviews, where the negative voices of course seemed to be the loudest, which I'll admit did deprioritize it a bit in my backlog. Recently, I fired it up to play the 2-player online co-op, can be played with up to 3-player. At its core, as the game is sold, Godfall is a melee combat looter. Think Diablo 3 or Borderlands, but over-the-shoulder melee combat with a lot of gear drops. Your character has a variety of unlockable suits called Valor Plates that have different stat settings and a unique power, which I'll go into here in a bit. You have 2 weapon slots and a slot for a life stone, amulet, charm, and banner, and 2 slots for rings. Further, there are unlockable augment slots for Valor Plates where you can plug in varying rarities of augments to further boost your power. Rarities go from gray to green to blue to purple to orange for all loot, often boosting one of the game's 3 stats, strength, spirit, and vitality. And yeah, there's a lot of loot. Enemies will drop it, there are chests, there are mission rewards, and there's a shop, so you'll be constantly looking out for that next new upgrade. The application of augments for the Valor Plates is a bit intense. There's a tree unique to each suit in formation and slots. Slots seem to be locked behind your player level. Some of them let you put any type of augment in it, while others are coded specifically to red, green, and blue, the might, vitality, and spirit stats. Augments come in levels with stats and bonuses like all other gear, but each one has a point value in addition, with the Valor Plate only being able to hold a certain max value. Some augments give extra bonuses for being next to specific colors, and sorting them and applying them was just a laborious task. Not to mention when you switch Valor Plates you can auto-switch to your equipped loadout, but of course with the augment arrangement being unique to each Valor Plate, you have to do that manually each time. While a lot of the feedback for the game was it's just a hack and slash, I would like to take a moment and break down some of the mechanics, because they're layered in pretty thick here, honestly, in some ways I've never seen before. First, as mentioned, you can equip 2 weapons at a time. There are quick weapons like longsword and dual blades, and there are also some heavies, the greatsword, warhammer, and a polearm. There's a light attack with R1 and a heavy attack with R2. You also have a shield that can be thrown and is used for parrying. There's a boatload of skills unlockable with skill points, which you get each time you level up. This opens and enhances a variety of combat options. Rampage, for example, kicks in when you hit enemies with a flurry of R1. Soul Shatter builds up on the enemy's life bar when you hit R1 and then executes big hits when you smack them with an R2. There's timed attack skills where hitting the attack button at precise moments does the damage. You start with a shield throw that knocks enemies down, allowing you to do a takedown on that grounded enemy. You can also parry projectiles with it. There are also a handful of new shield skills you can open. You can dash and do moves, and you can dodge. If you parry and or hit with big hits, you can open enemy weak points. If you hit a weak point well, you can initiate a death blow. Now you can refund points on the skill tree if you open up something you don't like, and each node is upgradable to 5 times, granting more and more bonuses. On top of all that, each weapon has 1 or 2 weapon techniques that build up over time. You can also add status ailments to attacks. Finally, there's an Archon Fury that builds up over time, kicked off by pressing in both sticks, and it's unique to each of the Valor Plates. I also mentioned a banner, which can be dropped with various effects within its radius as it's available. And last but not least is Polarity. You build up a charge on the weapon you're not using at the time, and once that's full, if you press triangle to switch weapons, you'll get a temporary boost with some customizable effects on there as well. I mean, for the 24 hours we spent with this game, there was enough variety to keep us having fun. The game's campaign has you attempting to stop a guy named Macros in an Anubis-looking Valor Plate from attempting to ascend to godhood. You do so by taking out each of his generals, which requires you to take down barriers to access levels, using various collectibles you get from completing the game's missions. There are 3 pretty giant environments you'll be spending most of the game in, and missions are selected from a map in your headquarters. Missions are repeatable, and there will also be additional side quests and hunts added to give you a little bit of variety in what you're fighting. You do have to repeat missions a few times to get enough materials to break said barriers, which may also be a point where people accuse this game of just being a little bit grindy. In addition to the creepy-looking Seventh Sanctum creature that hangs out in your base, helping you on your mission to stop the Ascension, you'll eventually have a shopkeeper join you. He has a random stock of gear, usually close to your level, and a variety of rarities that can be purchased with a handful of different resources. Electrum is the main source of cash, but you'll also find a variety of other materials as drops and quest rewards, which some of the higher legendaries he sells will require as payment. There's also a forge where you can enchant any piece of gear to raise its rarity, and you can upgrade it up to 5 times to increase its stats and bonuses. We finished the main campaign in, I'd guess, about 13 to 14 hours maybe. We spent another 6 or so hours doing the pre-max level in-game modes, Tower of Trials, and playing with Dreamstones. Here you try and make it up 10 levels in the elevator with 3 shared respawns among players, clearing enemies on an elevator ride, and a room on each level, with the rooms promising a reward of a boon to grant bonuses for the run, or treasure chests of loot, which are opened using keys. You gain keys from beating each event, and the faster you complete, the more keys you get as your reward. The Dreamstones were kind of a neat leveling distraction too. You enter a Dreamstone map and choose between challenges that offer stability to add to the Dreamstone, and lucidity, which you use to purchase rewards you receive upon Dreamstone completion. As you complete a few rounds, the Dreamstone may level up or throw a bane at you, and you want to try to get as many rewards as you can and defeat the boss before it becomes unstable. Once your character hits level 50, 2 more game modes open. The Ascended Tower of Trials, which is like the basic one except enemies get to be a way higher level than you, and Lightbringer, played in a light versus dark version of the 3 realms where you work to overcome darkness, once again with enemies at a way higher level than you. Also, after hitting max level 50, you start getting Ascension levels, which if you've played Diablo 3 work like Paragon points. You can choose where to put these points in advancing tiers as you climb higher and higher, boosting things like weapon damage percentage and your 3 basic stats. This is really the point where the game did feel like grinding to us. We weren't high enough to be successful in completing the endgame modes because we needed more Ascension points, but to get more Ascension points we had to play these endgame modes, and it sort of just became not fun. So we ended up calling it after a couple attempts in each mode. Graphically, the game looks astounding in 4K. The level of beauty and reflection and textures was some of the best I'd seen. The game's environments are designed to be epic looking, and it showcases everything very well. The Valor Plate design and variety, as well as the enemies too, just look really great. One frustration that wasn't a game stopper, but definitely caused some irritation, was object interactivity. When you're near something you can use or open, the circle button icon pops up. Now this was a little more rampant in co-op from what I understand, and we did some internet searches the first time it happened, but every once in a while you wouldn't be able to open treasure chests or use the grappling hooks to get through a level. People online sometimes said unquipping and re-equipping your gear would snap it back into place, which I think maybe worked a couple of the times, but other times we just had to go periods of not being able to open or interact with anything, and then finally kick back in after something. There's an elevator in the 3rd realm that might have been the most finicky thing I've ever seen in a game. There's a button on the floor outside the shaft and one in the center of the elevator. Finding a spot to make the circle pop up, sometimes it was on the back, sometimes it was on the side, sometimes you couldn't use the one outside the shaft, sometimes we had to hit the one outside the shaft and then sprint to the elevator as it was taken off. Finally, this reared its head in the Tower of Trials. You'd be standing there looking at the chest you wanted to open with the circle button above it, and you'd hold it, trying to open it. Instead, it'd expend your keys on the treasure chest next to you. I mean, it seems like it should be a pretty simple thing, but yeah, it's kind of borked. One other thing is several missions have side objectives, like throw your shield at 5 enemies, and flags on these weren't triggering all the time either. It was really awkward. With the rollout of the PlayStation Plus Challenger Edition version of the game, a new quest set was rolled out to everyone. This gives you 8 random objectives running at a time, and the completion of each fills a bar toward a quest reward, which on the way up seemed to be a level of whatever we were when we started the quests, granting level 32 equipment when we hit 38, for example, and so on. Which, yeah, seemed like it was definitely intended to provide a little depth to the Challenger Edition when you're already max level. There's another DLC that was $20 that seemed to expand on the campaign. On the map select, there was one thing that was still locked, and I was kind of assuming that's what this filled in. We were tempted and talked about it, but in the end decided not to engage. Overall, for a hack and slash game, there are a ton of combat mechanics going on here, with the Valor Plate selection and extensive skill menu. There's quite a bit of customization for a character. Not to mention tons of gear with tons of bonus variety. The story was nothing to write home about, but was competent enough to support the campaign. The graphics were beautiful, and the Valor Plate and enemy design were amazing too. The pre-50 endgame was enjoyable to roll through a few times, even if the actual endgame we didn't care for too much. Interactivity can be a thorn in your side, the augment interface was a bit laborious, and optional mission objectives were a bit wonky in their detection. Rated as a hack and slash game, Godfall hits a 72 out of 100 on my true 0 to 100 scale, where 50 is an average game. This is Jiro for Umber Games. Thanks for watching.